A completely destroyed Ferrari 296 sits silently under workshop lights, its once perfect Italian engineering now reduced to twisted carbon, broken suspension, and scattered components. What makes it even more shocking is how new it actually was, barely driven, barely broken in, and already fighting for survival after a single moment of loss of control. This is not just another supercar rebuild. This is a battle against complexity itself. The Ferrari 296 is one of the most advanced machines ever built, hybrid-assisted, twin-turbocharged, and capable of delivering over 800 horsepower with surgical precision. On paper, it's perfection. On the road, it's unforgiving. And in this case, it proved just how quickly perfection can collapse into chaos. When the car first arrived at Ferrari Cyprus, the damage told its own story. Suspension ripped apart, steering components shattered, electrical systems locked down like the car were protecting itself from further harm. Even Ferrari's own technicians paused, because this level of damage on a 296 is still unfamiliar territory. And that's where the real problem began. Because repairing a Ferrari like this isn't just about replacing parts. It's about understanding a machine that refuses to function unless every single system is alive. Missing sensors, disconnected modules, even a removed bumper can stop the entire car from waking up. The 296 doesn't just break, it locks itself down completely. The team's first mission wasn't to fix it, it was simply to make it roll. Thousands of pounds worth of parts were ordered. Suspension arms, tie rods, sensors, hydraulic lines, every piece carefully chosen just to bring the car back onto four wheels. Even tools had to be borrowed directly from Ferrari's own workshop floor. Every bolt tightened felt like a negotiation with an engineering system designed to resist repair. But something strange quickly became clear. The deeper they went, the more the car fought back. Electrical systems refused to respond. Diagnostic tools failed to communicate. Even Ferrari's own scanners couldn't properly read the vehicle. A hidden safety system, possibly a pyrofuse or full electrical shutdown, had effectively turned the car into a silent shell. No start. No scan, no communication, just silence. And in that silence, a bigger problem emerged. Ferrari itself needed to be involved just to understand what was happening. But involving Ferrari meant triggering official records, warranty flags, and accident history logs that could permanently affect the car's future. Every connection carried consequences. Still, progress had to continue. Slowly, piece by piece, the suspension was rebuilt. New dampers assembled using a mix of old and new components. Brake systems reconnected. Hydraulics restored. The front corner of the car began to look whole again, but only physically. Mechanically, it was still incomplete. Then came the moment that changed everything. The battery was connected. For a brief second, life returned to the dashboard. Lights flickered. Systems woke up just enough to confirm the worst, hybrid system failure. And then, nothing else responded. No ignition, no diagnostics, no recovery. Even Ferrari technicians were left searching for answers. The car simply refused to be seen by the system, as if it had decided it was no longer part of the network of life. And time was running out. With only days left at the Ferrari facility, the urgency turned into pressure. The car had to move. Not fixed, not repaired, just mobile enough to leave. But now another problem appeared. The electronic handbrake was locked, a small component with massive consequences. Without it releasing, the car couldn't be pushed, loaded, or transported. Everything paused again, this time not because of damage, but because of a single system refusing to let go. So the team stripped it down further. Electrical motors disconnected, calipers manually released. Step by step, they fought against a machine that was no longer just broken, but fully defensive. Finally, the Ferrari moved again, but not to freedom, to shipping restrictions, import complications, and months of waiting. The car left Cyprus, not repaired, not understood, but simply relocated. And then silence, for months, until it finally returned to the UK, covered in dust, damaged, still incomplete. The real rebuild hadn't even started yet. Inside the workshop, the scale of the damage became clearer. Doors removed, panels stripped, wiring exposed. And behind it all, frame damage that told the truth no one wanted to fully see. This wasn't just suspension failure. This was structural impact. And now the rebuild that once felt challenging has become something far more complicated, because a Ferrari is no longer just waiting for parts. It is waiting for answers. Why won't it communicate? Why does it refuse diagnostics? And what is the hidden fault that even Ferrari couldn't unlock? Every bolt removed reveals another layer of uncertainty. Every panel stripped exposes another unknown. And every attempt to restart it leads back to the same result. Nothing. But in this silence, the project takes on a different meaning. It is no longer just about repairing a supercar. It is about understanding one of the most advanced road cars ever built, and why, when it fails completely. And until Ferrari delivers the missing answers, the rebuild remains frozen in place. A machine worth hundreds of thousands, sitting powerless, waiting for its next chapter. And somewhere inside that silence, the real story of the Ferrari 296 is still waiting to be discovered. The lights dim, the workshop quiets, and the only thing left is what comes next. A completely destroyed Ferrari 296 sits motionless inside a workshop, its once flawless Italian engineering now reduced to fractured carbon fiber, twisted suspension arms, disconnected hydraulics, and silent electronics that refuse to respond. Just days ago, this machine represented the peak of modern performance engineering, hybrid-assisted, twin-turbocharged, and capable of over 800 horsepower. Now, it is nothing more than a lockdown system waiting for answers it refuses to give. And what makes it worse is that this car was almost brand new. This is not just a rebuild. This is a standstill in progress. Because the Ferrari 296 is not built like normal cars. It does not forgive shortcuts. It does not tolerate missing components. And when something goes wrong, it doesn't just break. It shuts down completely, isolating itself from every diagnostic path, every scan tool, every attempt at revival. That is exactly where this project has ended up. At Ferrari Cyprus, the first inspection told a brutal story. A high-speed impact had torn through the front suspension, damaged critical structural areas, and triggered a full system shutdown. What looked like surface damage was only the beginning. Beneath it, hidden faults were already spreading through the car like silent failures waiting to be uncovered. And then came the first shock. Even Ferrari's own technicians were stepping into unknown territory, because repairing a 296 is not like repairing older supercars. Every system is interconnected. Every module depends on another. And if even one link in the chain is missing, the entire car refuses to wake up. So the initial goal was simple. Make it roll. Nothing more. No engine start. No full repair. Just movement. But even that proved complicated. Thousands of pounds worth of parts were ordered just to rebuild a single corner of the car. Suspension arms, tie rods, steering components, hydraulic lines, all carefully selected just to bring the Ferrari back onto its wheels. Every bolt tightened felt like rebuilding a system that was actively resisting reconstruction. And in the middle of it all, something strange started happening. The electronics refused to cooperate. No full ignition, no proper scan, no communication. Even Ferrari's diagnostic system struggled to recognize the vehicle. It was as if the car had entered protective shutdown mode, cutting itself off from the world entirely. A hidden safety system, possibly a pyrofuse or full electrical isolation triggered by impact, had done its job too well. Instead of protecting the car, it had effectively frozen it. No start, no scan, no recovery, just silence. Still, mechanical work continued. Suspension rebuilt piece by piece. Damper systems reconstructed using a mix of old and new components. Brake assemblies refitted carefully to avoid damaging fragile carbon discs. Hydraulic nose lift systems reconnected. Every part installed brought the car physically closer to completion, while electrically, it stayed completely dead. And that contrast became more and more unsettling. A car that looks complete, but behaves like it doesn't exist. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Power restored. The battery connected. For a brief second, life returned. Dashboard lights flickered. Systems attempted to initialize. Messages appeared, hybrid system failure. And then everything stopped again. No ignition sequence. No diagnostic response. No communication through the OBD system. Even Ferrari technicians were confused. The scanner returned nothing. No handshake. No data. As if the car wasn't just broken, but invisible. That changed everything. Because now, this wasn't a simple rebuild anymore. It was a diagnostic dead zone, a machine too advanced to understand without full system restoration. And time was running out. The Ferrari needed to leave the dealership workshop. Not fixed, not repaired, just mobile enough to be transported. But then another problem emerged that stopped everything again. The electronic handbrake had locked itself, a small system with massive consequences. Without releasing it, the car couldn't roll, couldn't move, couldn't be loaded. Everything came to a halt again, this time not because of damage, but because of a system refusing to disengage. So the team went deeper. Electrical motors disconnected, calipers stripped, mechanical release methods attempted. Every step carefully executed on a car that could technically wake up at any moment, even if no one believed it would. Finally, the wheels were freed. The Ferrari moved again. But not home, not to repair, just out of Ferrari's control. Months passed. The car disappeared into logistics, shipping routes, customs delays, and regulatory barriers. Cyprus to Greece, Greece to the UK. A journey that had nothing to do with performance, and everything to do with paperwork, restrictions, and survival ownership. And then, silence again, until it returned. Back in the UK workshop, covered in dust, salt residue, and the evidence of long storage. Still damaged, still incomplete, still refusing to reveal its full condition. This time, the rebuild took a darker turn. Panels removed, doors stripped down, electrical connectors discovered in unexpected locations, wiring harnesses exposed, and behind it all, structural damage far worse than initially expected. The frame was not just affected, it was compromised, and that changed everything. Because now, this is no longer a suspension rebuild or electrical recovery. It is a full forensic reconstruction of a modern hybrid supercar that actively resists being understood. Every system check leads to another unknown. Every attempt to revive electronics leads to another failure point. Every mechanical fix reveals a deeper electrical mystery beneath it. And still, the biggest question remains unanswered. Why does a Ferrari 296 refuse to come back online? Not partially, not intermittently, but at all. Somewhere inside its architecture, a single failure is holding the entire machine hostage. And until Ferrari delivers the missing answers, or the team uncovers them alone, the project remains frozen in place. A supercar worth hundreds of thousands. Silent, powerless, waiting. And as the workshop lights reflect off its damaged panels, one truth becomes unavoidable. This isn't just a rebuild anymore. It's a fight against a machine that no longer wants to be found. A completely destroyed Ferrari 296 sits in the workshop like a frozen piece of modern engineering failure, low, wide, and once breathtaking, now stripped of its confidence, its sound, and its identity. What was once a cutting-edge hybrid supercar capable of shocking acceleration and razor-sharp precision is now a silent shell of carbon fiber, aluminum, and lockdown electronics. And the most frustrating part? It didn't die slowly. It stopped in an instant. This Ferrari was nearly new when everything went wrong. A moment of lost control, a high-speed impact, and suddenly one of Ferrari's most advanced road cars was no longer a machine. It was a problem. A very expensive, very complex, and very stubborn problem. When it first arrived at Ferrari Cyprus, even experienced technicians knew this wasn't going to be straightforward. The damage wasn't just cosmetic, or even just suspension deep. It had reached into the car's digital nervous system. Sensors were gone, modules were confused, and the car had already begun shutting itself down before anyone even touched it. Because a Ferrari 296 doesn't just respond to damage. It reacts to it, and it reacts aggressively. The first goal was simple in theory: make it roll. Not fix it, not diagnose everything. Just get it back onto wheels so it could be moved. But the reality quickly became something else entirely. Every missing part mattered. Every disconnected system mattered. Even the absence of basic components was enough to stop the entire car from cooperating. So the rebuild began, not as restoration, but as survival. New suspension components were sourced, but nothing came cheap or simple. Every part had to match Ferrari's precision tolerances. Inner tie rods, wishbones, hydraulic lines, steering components, all carefully installed just to bring life back to one corner of the car. But even as metal was being replaced and bolts tightened, the car itself remained unresponsive. No ignition, no proper electrical wake-up, no communication. It was as if the Ferrari had decided it no longer existed in the world of diagnostics. And that's where things took a turn. Because modern Ferraris don't just fail mechanically, they enter protective shutdown states. Pyrophyses, crash protocols, hybrid isolation systems, all designed to protect the car. But in this case, they had done the opposite. Instead of preserving function, they had erased it. Even Ferrari's own diagnostic tools struggled. Plug in the scanner. Nothing. Turn on ignition. Partial response. Try to read data. No connection. It was like talking to a machine that refused to acknowledge it was there. Still, mechanical progress continued. Suspension rebuilt. Brake systems reassembled. Damper units restored using a mix of new and recovered components. The goal was no longer performance. It was mobility. Every bolt tightened was another step towards simply moving the car out of its prison. But the deeper they went, the worse the unknowns became. Hydraulic systems didn't behave as expected. Electrical connectors appeared damaged in unexpected places. And structural inspection revealed something no one wanted to fully confront yet. Frame-level damage hiding behind outer panels. This wasn't just a repair anymore. It was a full investigation. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Battery connected. For a brief second, the Ferrari woke up. Dashboard lights flickered like a heartbeat returning after silence. Systems attempted initialization. Messages appeared. Hybrid system failure. Service required. Dealer intervention needed. And then it stopped again. No engine start. No full system scan. No stability. Just fragments of life. Then silence. Even Ferrari technicians were left searching for logic. The diagnostic tool showed almost nothing. No full communication. No clear fault tree. Just partial signals and missing responses. And that's when the reality became unavoidable. This Ferrari wasn't just damaged. It was locked. Somewhere inside the system, a critical failure had triggered a complete shutdown state that even Ferrari's own infrastructure couldn't fully bypass without deeper takedown. And time was no longer on their side. The car had to leave the dealership. But then another problem surfaced. The electronic handbrake had engaged permanently. A small system, but with absolute control. Without releasing it, the Ferrari could not roll, could not be pushed, could not be loaded. So the team had no choice but to go deeper again, disconnecting motors, manually releasing calipers, carefully neutralizing a system designed to stay engaged even in failure conditions. Every action carried risk. Because this car was unpredictable now. It could stay dead, or it could wake up at any moment. Eventually, it moved. Not under power, not under control, but just enough to leave. What followed was not a repair journey, but a forced relocation through layers of logistics and delay. Cyprus to Greece, Greece to the UK. Months of waiting, transporting, paperwork, and uncertainty. And when it finally returned, it looked worse than expected. Dust-covered, weathered, still broken, still silent. Inside the UK workshop, the real teardown began. Doors removed, panels